Planning a fishing trip shouldn't feel like a full-time job. With fishingbooker.com, you can find and book the perfect fishing trip within minutes. Fishingbooker.com connects you with trusted fishing captains around the world. Booking is fast, easy, and secure, with access to verified customer reviews, loyalty rewards, and around-the-clock customer support. Everything you need to book with confidence is in one place. So head to fishingbooker.com and start planning your next fishing adventure today.
Scree gear is more than apparel. It's a tribute to the relentless, the tireless, the true guardians of the wilderness. It's for those who seek not just a game, but a legacy. Not just a sport, but a way of life. In our gear, you're more than a hunter. You're a story, a tradition, a legend in the making. Scree is your journey, your triumph, your success. Join the working man revolution. Success awaits.
All right, welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass Podcast, Kevin and Chuck. Today, we're going to talk about private militaries, mercenaries, basically the paid warrior, right? I mean, we all like to get paid, and money, if you're going to give up your life and do your stuff, you may as well, one, do something productive, and two, you may as well get paid for it. I don't know. There's Kevin, why would there even be a need for a paid military? Isn't that what governments do? Don't they create a military? Why would you go outside the box like that and even want to hire a private contractor?
Chuck, that is a fantastic question. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of reasons that people do it. I mean, the first one, basically, a lot of nations have militaries that are at basically like a defensive level of people. You know what I mean? To defend their country. But if you're going to go to war with another country, you want to boost up those numbers, So It's a great way to add some manpower. When
a force multiplier
like that. Right. And another one is politics. You know what I mean? No one wants to hear about dead soldiers, But if you're an American and you hear about some dead private contractor, you don't think much about it.
That guy's greedy and he was probably doing some bad shit anyway.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And actually, the more I read about this, the more truth there is to that. Not the greedy part, just doing the bad shit.
Now, there's a lot. I do think there is a lot of truth to the idea that our government and many governments throughout the world like to pay people to do things that they don't want to be like, we did that. Because look, They did that. We didn't have any idea. I saw one of the interviews.
The third main reason to have them is plausible deniability.
Exactly. I saw an interview with Eric Prince. He's the founder of Blackwater and former Navy SEAL. And he gave his description, and he's like, "Well, we never did anything that we weren't hired to do," and I think that's true.
Right.
But I think that they were hired to do this any way possible, whatever it takes to, get that, make it happen,
Right.
And I think that's where a lot of that gray, murky, but remember what kind of people politicians are. These are the people who are like, yeah, we want you to just go handle business. Mm-hmm. And, there's a lot of dirtbags in politics. Turns out you wouldn't even want to be in politics unless you were a dirtbag. People are idealistic and shit when they're young, and I understand that. And you have good motives and intentions. But once you really look into and understand the world of politics, you kind of have to be a dirtbag to want to, or you might at best, you would be like, all right, I'll go tolerate the slime and the ugliness so I can try and move the ball. I will suffer. But you're not going because I want that.
Right.
Once you look into it and realize what politics really is.
Right.
That's, and that honestly maybe some of the same motive with going to be a mercenary too. You might be like, well, I like the idea of being a badass and going out with guns and kicking ass for freedom and patriotism. And then when you look at it, you're like, well, I'm not really sure it's patriotism, and I'm not really sure, but we'll kind of get into that. Like, think about this, like maybe NATO, right? Why do people love using NATO, other countries, right? Because you can't think of this scenario, right? Maybe you're the U.S. government, and maybe in some crazy, unrealistic world, you want to go take guns away from private citizens. I mean, that would never happen here, obviously.
No, that would never happen, but I know what you're saying.
Like Superman. Right. Superman had that alternate world. I don't know what it was called. You probably know about that shit.
Nah, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. So there was some kind of alternate Superman in this alternate America where they want to take away your guns.
Oh, Bizarro Superman.
Bizarro
America.
Superman. That's the one. Yeah, I knew it. All right.
So in Bizarro America.
Right. Where they want to take away the guns and they're not about freedom. They might be like, hey, U.S. military, we want you to go take away everybody's guns. And they're like, we kind of joined the military because we like guns and because we like the Constitution. We actually took an oath to support and defend the Constitution. And they're, you know what? Fuck you guys. Don't forget that. You know what? Let's go to NATO. Hey, could you guys come over from a totally different country and come in here and be like, take the guns from these crazy citizens? And they'd be like, oh yeah, that sounds like something we could get behind. And maybe that doesn't work because NATO is not really cool enough to go up against hardcore American citizens. Then they go, hey, how about you British private contractors? You guys hate guns. England, you've been born and bred to hate guns. Can you come over and kick some ass? And they're like, the price is right. The flight's tonight. And then they're like, well, how do we pay for it? And they're like, wait, we can just tax the shit out of the American citizens and then use that money to fuck them.
Yeah. And
we'll pay any amount they want, to these mercenaries. I mean, that would obviously only be in Bizarro America.
Right.
But that's one scenario where you might, want to use a private military. I'm just saying in a hypothetical world.
Hypothetically.
But hypothetically. Because I've heard that sometimes, and again, dude, this is a mix of people, right? Society is a mix of good and bad people. The military, U.S. military is a mix of good and bad people. I imagine there's one good politician out there. I mean, I haven't found him.
Yeah, there's probably one.
Probably a mix of people in politics. I've never seen them, but I mean, it's probably there. But, so I think the same thing might apply with mercenaries. Now, again, there might even be entire companies that are all good guys in mercenaries. So don't get me wrong here. What I mean is there are bound to be some mercenaries out there who might not be good guys, who are just down for, hey, it's a paycheck. Fuck you. I'm going to go do it.
Yeah. I feel like if your job is if you took a job where you kill people for a living, it's probably not like a high percentage of good people working as mercenaries. But, some people just like fun and adventure. Yeah, exactly.
There you go. But here's the thing. Like, I mean, dude, to be honest, right? If I was 20 and in shape and fit and no kids and family and burden behind, when somebody's like, hey, how'd you like 150 grand a year for working 6 months of the year? I'd be like, sign me up.
Yeah.
Wait, can I do 6 months twice and make 3? Yup. Okay, sign me up. Dude, I would do that shit in a heartbeat. And I'm old and tired now, and it's a different world. But just the same, I think you guys get the point that we're going at. I'm not saying that you got to be a crazy psycho to love going out and kicking ass and taking names. But like Kevin said, you definitely invite some of that. Yeah. And, these people probably eat raw meat for breakfast and whatever. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Right. Now,
I said, dude, I know, wait, but let me just say one more time. I know 90% of you guys out there would be down for the fight if they were like, hey, you're fit and ready to go. And you'd be like, yep, let's do it. So I understand that. And I would be right there with you, brothers. I get that. So just, understand. I'm not knocking you guys. I'm just saying it invites the possibility of some harder edged guys.
Mm-hmm. Now, what really shocks me, now you just mentioned, $150,000 for 6 months, and that's a legitimate pay if you've got legitimate experience and you're working for a legitimate company.
Legitimate, yes.
What
and legitimate
really surprises
is a key word here.
Yeah, what really surprises me is the amount that a lot of mercenaries work for. Not much. Yes. It's not much. The Syrian mercenaries in working for Russia right now, they're getting paid $7,000 a month, compared to the average Russian soldier, which is making about $2,600 a month.
See, but again, that's still triple. That like you think American military pay. That's I was watching some interviews and some research on mercenaries before we did this episode, as we always do, and some of the guys were like, yeah, anybody who's good in the military would leave and become a mercenary, because why would you not get paid if you're good?
Right. If you're good at it.
There's never some truth to that. Free. I mean, obviously, you could be like, well, wait a minute. You guys ever heard of Chris Kyle? Well, yeah, and you're right. There's obviously people who love America and, do what they got to do and are badass. And I know there's some badass guys out there in the military. And I get that. But I mean, that's why I'm not in the military, is because I was like, I really need to get paid, and I'm cheating my family by not going out and earning the money that I could earn. I mean, that is a big factor, because going out and playing with guns all day, that's a fucking dream of mine, But now I can actually afford as many guns as I want, and whatever. All right, maybe not as many as I want, but as many as your average citizen would want.
Yeah,
or even like 10 times that many. But not as many as I would want.
The company that used to be called Blackwater pays up to $22,000 a month.
A month. All right. And so what you're saying is the price is right. The flight's tonight.
That's right. That's a good little chunk of money there.
That is a good little chunk of money. Now,
but if you're walking in into that with no experience, you're really starting about $9,000 a month, which isn't bad either.
No, 9,000 ain't bad. Now, walking in there, but there are different companies. There are guys making $200 a day, $150. There's always a starting point, and we're going to kind of talk about that and what you might do and whatever. What people do for money, where you can maybe find that out, but I don't know. So there's a lot of cool things. Now, how would one? I don't know. Did you have any more on this direction, or are we moving on?
No, we can
like who are mercenaries throughout time? Do we have any that?
Yeah, well, some of the earliest ones that were. I mean, obviously, it's probably one of the oldest professions. Hiring somebody to beat somebody else's ass.
There is one profession.
There's one profession that might be a little bit older. But one of the most famous,
and it also involves ass, a little bit different type. All right, go on.
Yeah, so one of the earliest ones, and a lot of people probably remember this from maybe not history class, but if you're interested in history, you probably remember this. The 10,000. Now that was a group of Greeks that were hired by let me see here, hired by Cyrus the Younger to seize the throne of Persia. Now, they went to Persia with this dude, joined up his army. They fought in some battle down there. I forget the name of the actual battle, but the 10,000 were just kicking ass. But they were outnumbered, and the Persians collapsed the left flank. That wasn't the Greeks.
Okay.
And they captured all the food and all the money and killed the guy that was trying to take the throne, Cyrus the Younger. And then they realized, well, they have these 10,000 guys that have no food or money, and they can't beat them. So they basically gave them food to leave, and then betrayed them and killed their top guys. They invited them to a feast and killed all the generals there. And then, but they still had these 10,000 guys that were so they just started fucking things up. And they fought all the way through Persia back to Greece. And basically that was the event that they realized how weak Persia was. And it wasn't very much longer after that Alexander the Great came to power in Macedonia, which is northern Greece, and basically conquered Persia. But it was the amount of carnage the 10,000 caused fighting their way out of Persia, and how easy it was for them to do it, and ended up basically causing the collapse of the Persian Empire. Now there's another guy. Now I'm not even going to get into this because he's a whole podcast, but Henry MacIver, Maciver. He fought for 19 different countries throughout his time period. He fought for the Confederacy at one point, and then 20 years later, he fought for the United States against Mexico. Then he fought for Mexico. Then he fought for 5 or 6 different European countries, and also South America. He was really just all over the world killing people. Interesting character. Look him up if you get a chance. Definitely a fascinating guy. Now, mercenaries have been historically have been, a major part of most conflicts. Even during the American Revolution, Americans were more likely to go up against Germans than British soldiers in a lot of these battles. Hessian troops and, that sort of thing. Legend of Sleepy Hollow, that guy was a Hessian. The Headless Horseman.
Nice. Bit later, French and Indian War. Turns out you wouldn't think that the Indians and the Frenchmen would be natural allies, but turns out the price is right. The flight's tonight.
That's right. You pay enough, you get somebody to do it. And believe it or not, a lot of people don't realize this, but believe it or not, Native Americans were pretty excellent warriors. One, they were hunter-gatherer type people, which means that their diet was far superior to the bread and beer that the settlers were eating. They didn't spend any time inside reading books and studying. As kids, they just fucking ran, jumped, fished, swim, all that sort of shit. And once you fire a musket, it takes a lot of time to reload that. So if you just have a big club, you can really fuck a lot of people up. And that was the case a lot of the time. Native Americans were not somebody to take lightly, even if you were well armed, and they weren't. So, just throwing that out there. So, modern mercenaries, though, there's a lot going on right now. So, what do we got?
Well, one, I believe we mentioned in a recent episode that you can sign up and go fight for the Ukraine military right now. In a way, you're kind of a mercenary. Right. And I have to point out, any reputable mercenary group absolutely will not hire anyone who has not served in the military. And this might be your opportunity. Just jump over to Ukraine. I heard that the Ukraine might not even take it if you're not prior military. So maybe you
Yeah,
could
I
get
think
your
that's the case.
experience.
Or if you're medical training,
Okay,
they'll take you, even if you don't
that's
have
fair.
military experience.
However, have you guys heard of the French Foreign Legion? Yes. Now, sure,
Mm-hmm.
you're working for the French, so, but they do outsource their badassness because obviously they know they're not badass because they're French. So
Yeah.
they're like, hey, let's bring in somebody. Maybe they'll be badass. Maybe that's how that
Mm-hmm.
works. I'm not really
Yeah.
sure.
Now the French
Yes.
Foreign Legion, you cannot fight in France. Like if France is attacked, the French Foreign Legion doesn't come.
That would be weird.
They're only foreign. They only do foreign shit, and they're foreign people. You can't join the French Foreign Legion if you are French, and you can't fight any place in France if you're in the Foreign Legion.
That's just weird, I gotta say.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like a giant mercenary group, to be honest.
Yeah, it's really exactly what it is.
Now, if you want to join the French Foreign Legion, you can't. There is no online application. You can't.
I can't go
to the
on
French embassy.
Okay.
On the Google or whatever, and no, you can't go to the French embassy and say, "Hey, I want to sign up." Nope. You got to go to France and go to the local recruiting office. The upside is they're open 365, 24/7. So
nice.
They are ready to serve you. You just go in. Now, you are looking at a 5-year commitment.
Mm-hmm.
I believe the max BMI is 30%, which is a little more lenient than the U.S. military was when I was there. I know when I was in, the U.S. military was looking at 22% as a max. So you can be a little bit, a little squishier.
Yeah.
A little chubby. I wrote down the age. Let me see if I have it. You got to be a little younger. So between 17 and a half years old and 39 and a half years old.
All right.
If you want
39,
to join the
that's
French.
not that young.
And you do have to know how to read and write in your native language.
In your native language. So I don't have to learn French.
Not French. But, and they didn't mention if you had to speak French, but it might be uncomfortable for you. You have to not be wanted by Interpol, but they didn't say anything about felonies from the U.S. government or anything. That was not mentioned as a problem. And they do want you to know how to swim. So that's what we got there. I didn't get as much research. I actually had looked into it way back when I was younger, but you can join the IDF, the Israeli Defensive Forces.
Okay. So these are all things that you can bump up your resume here.
Right. So if you want to
start earning
the
big bucks,
you're like, I can't get behind the U.S. military, but you might say, hey, I'm going to go get my experience in the French Foreign Legion or the Israeli Army. The Israeli Army, they either want you to have a relative that's Jewish, or if you have if you commit to Judaism or you become a citizen. I believe those are the requirements, and you can get in there, and they probably want you to be young and fit and badass and, all that. But all right, so those are your options. A lot of private contractors are not down for law enforcement only unless you're maybe some kind of badass SWAT guy or whatever. I think the experience I got talking to people I've met over the years and some of the interviews that I watch now doing research is they like the reason with the hardline former military requirement is you understand the bond that guys have when they're in the military. And it doesn't even matter that, one guy is special forces and one guy was a freaking, ET like me in the Navy, right? You fix electronics. You both have that shared hardship. Now, obviously, an ET doesn't necessarily have the same training or skills or experiences as a Navy SEAL, but you have that brotherhood bond. Now, another thing to understand is there are private contractors for just about every rate there was in the military.
Right.
They're looking for electronic guys. they are looking for, guys who can go in like a CB and do construction. And, I mean, you're actually in very big demand being former military and a construction guy as private contractors. So you don't necessarily, now, if you want to be a security guy, they are a lot of the time really looking for, force recon or like that, or guys who are SEALs and Rangers and, badasses. No doubt. That's more who's going to get hired. It does depend. They really, they require, every company and every pay rate is going to require different skills. Although what seems to be ironic is it seems to be like inversely proportional, where the lower paid ones are the ones where you're going to be in the most danger and you're going to be in the shittier world. What happens is some companies will just throw bodies at a problem. Oh, we have a contract. Right. We just need 20 guys over there and we don't care. So yeah, you know what? I'll hire you without any military experience or your two years as a boatswain's mate, whatever. I'll hire you to go be a whatever. I just need you to supervise picking up ballots from the Iraqi election. It won't even be a problem, dude. They're all, right. Nobody's going to be gunning for you. Don't even worry about it. That kind of shit, right? Those guys, you got to look at the job and look at what they're requiring. And I think the other thing to keep in mind is, guess what? If they're willing to hire you without you being a badass, guess what kind of guys are working around you?
Right.
You think you're going to be out there with Chuck Norris, but you know what? He's in a different group. He's like in the guys that are getting paid and really doing, guys who know what they're doing and also recognize a bad situation. What I've heard talking to guys, there's a lot of, if you're a patriot, I hate to say it, joining the military might be a better fit. Mercenaries, they do different things. They're there to do a job. They're not there to protect America and American interests and values, right? So you just got to keep that in mind. Now, obviously, there are good things and people who are paid to do awesome things, that are impressive and great. But you got to take all that into account. There is a website called Silent Professionals that actually had a lot of job listings and things you could look at. A lot of the neat ones, some of you Navy guys, they had protecting against like Somali pirates, protecting cruise ships, that kind of thing. Cruise ships, cargo container ships, oil tankers, that kind of stuff. They're down. There's jobs for you out there and you can get paid. And, that stuff's pretty cool. But I think there's definitely some pros and cons, right? So what are some of the pros and cons? I think the pros, money, right? We just talked about. You get paid, right? I mean, you can definitely make money. Schedule can be a pro. Go out, work for 90 days, then have 30 days, have a month off. Having a month off at a time is kind of cool. You get to kind of jump into the life that you want. Not so bad. The food, believe it or not, a lot of the private contractors eat well. Now, again, you get in on one of those crap contracts, you might be eating in the chow hall with the regular military and sleeping in crappy bunks and whatever. But a lot of the better ones, your Blackwater guys and stuff, a lot of time you'll have a chef, you'll have a nice gym, you'll have I've heard of them having psychiatrists and the whole deal available to you, whatever you want. They're out to take care of you. So it just depends. Some negatives, right? Well, you get used to that pay and lifestyle. Then all of a sudden you have to go back to, I find I do this calculation with myself at work where I'm like, well, I could buy that because I only have to work 3 hours to afford that. And so that
Right.
used dirt bike or whatever, that sounds like a good, and you just get in that kind of mindset of, oh, well, it's just money and whatever. But that can have consequences on your financial life later.
Right.
Because there are guys that usually the ones that don't plan well that end up being mercenaries until they're old men and they're still out there at 50 and even sometimes 60, I've heard of. Will be out there, standing a post. And that's because they can't manage their money for shit. Because you don't want to be out there putting your ass on the line and, So just something to be aware of. A lot of, what else? Sometimes, you're hanging out and people get shot in the face. I mean, that's probably a negative. Again, each his own, right?
Never been shot in the face myself, but it doesn't seem like something I really would be interested in trying out.
And sometimes even just like your buddy gets shot in the face, that still could be traumatizing to you. But again, if you're the young single guy and you have discipline with your money, and because, all 18 and 20-year-olds like have good discipline and, with their money, and they don't go out and buy, stupid cars and, that's never happened. So if you if you did like 5-6 years in the military, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you have any military experience, the best time for anybody to make money is when a bunch of 19-year-olds come back from a 6-month cruise. They got all that money and got to spend it as fast as they can.
Yeah, they do.
I know a lot of people that bought a lot of shitty speakers for their house and for their car with all their pay.
The used car dealers are like, yeah, you need a sports car you can't afford. Oh, yeah, I do. Yeah, it's just bad. It ends bad. But I mean, just realize that is something. Now, a lot of these companies, it's not just security contracts, though. Think like Halliburton. Companies are going over and building bridges and, they're setting up, rebuilding a city. Hey, we need you to go in and set up a school or a hospital or they'll go in and do it. Now, these companies will use security to work around the outside, but you can also just be getting paid being a contractor out there. And having that good experience, you can really, make some money and have a good time. I mean, you can see the world and learn about different stuff. And in a way, you are kind of helping people. You are rebuilding communities and whatever. Hey, and you're doing it off the American dime, right? Off our finances. Another con is actually not all these companies are legit. Right? Some companies will send you over, they'll take a contract that's legitimate and then send you over there and be like, hey, look, we bought all these AK-47s from the local warlord. Here you go. Go handle business. And there's still sometimes, consequences for that kind of stuff. So you actually have to do a little research. And like I said, the ones that are easy to get into are the ones where you run the biggest risk of that.
Becoming an international criminal.
Better, you're better off maybe knowing somebody in the business or seeking out one of the more reputable ones and just do your research is what I would say. See what they're doing. Definitely, they are looking for guys over at Ukraine. There is mercenary jobs for Ukraine. They're saying $1,000 to $2,000 a day. Mm-hmm. And I imagine you're a pretty badass guy if you're paying you $2,000 a day. They probably don't want me for $2,000 a day.
No,
like I might be able to get the $275 a day. But
at this point, I'm a little old and squishy. Yeah.
It happens, right? It's each his own.
Mm-hmm. One of the big corporations that has a lot of job openings, that's a legitimate place, is the Constellis Corporation. Now, I'm going to read from their website what they say about themselves. Constellis provides end-to-end risk management and comprehensive security solutions to safeguard people and infrastructure globally. So what does that mean? Well, not really anything. It's not very clear about what they do, but they own multiple other companies, like Triple Canopy, Olive Group, the Development Initiative, Omniplex, and Academy. Now, that's Blackwater. I think probably most of you guys are familiar with the name Blackwater, which was one of the private contractor companies during the Gulf War, the second Gulf War. And I think they changed their name to Z Company, XI Company. But they change their names all the time, and that's kind of intentional.
Now, why is it, Kevin, that a company would want to change its name frequently? Oh, because maybe you don't want to be associated with the shit you just did?
Yeah.
I mean, that might be something to do with that. Like,
yeah, and there were some videos that came out
awesome.
With Blackwater guys driving through cities in trucks and just shooting guns at anybody that was on the street. Not really a great
Why
look.
would they be outside if they weren't criminals, though, really, Kevin?
There
I mean,
you go.
why would you come out of your house? Like, we saw that in Boston, right? When they had that whole martial law thing. Hey, you came out of your house, shoot them.
Yep.
That's the kind of thing that we do private
Acting up. You wanted to go out and get food for your kids? Nah, asshole.
No. What were you thinking?
What were you thinking? So if you do some research and look into some videos, you might see some questionable things from different companies, but, that company doesn't exist anymore. Now it's called something else. So same guys working there, but it's called something else now. So it's not the same thing. Now, the more I pay attention, though, to the news, the more I see mercenaries involved in shit. There were some situations with possibly overthrowing the government of Haiti, and not a whole lot of information on that one, but there were definitely some Americans that were former military that were getting paid by somebody to do something. I don't know what happened, but I think some of those guys got arrested and some of those guys disappeared. So there's definitely questionable stuff you can get into. If that's your kind of thing. Maybe that's your thing. Maybe you like questionable shit.
We all kind of like questionable shit.
Yeah,
I mean,
this is a no judgment zone.
That's it. You just, like I said, Price is Right, the flight's tonight, Actually, now maybe you can't get hired as a badass whatever. You might want to consider making your own kind of job situation. Now, there is a guy, and this is a local guy when I lived in New York. This guy, I've actually met this guy. He's dead now, but I met him, and he decided, hey, I'm going to go over to Iraq and say that I'm filming a documentary for National Geographic. Because who wouldn't do that in the middle of the Iraq war? Like, that just makes good sense.
Makes sense.
Because you're like, nature, let's see what's happening. But then that didn't pan out quite like he thought it would. So he's like, you know what would be better? I have this apartment already. What if I made it into a prison camp? I mean,
makes sense.
Why
Logical
not,
step.
Right? Logical step. So he's like, well, all right, first I'm going to need some prisoners. What I can do is, there's Iraqis like walking around all over the place.
They're everywhere.
Get in here. Get in here. You see this little barbed wire set up? Yep. I'm an American. You have to do what I say. Throws them in there. And it's like, if I interrogate all these motherfuckers, one of them's bound to know something. So he just goes to town. He's got his whole like Abu Ghraib thing going on. He's just freaking pulling out fingernails and God knows what, right? Eventually these guys are like, yeah, we got all And then the guy has all kinds of like self-promotion. So he's going around to like any American reporter he can find. And he's like, hey, I'm doing negotiating for the warlords over here. I'm doing this. I'm helping out. I'm part of the team. They get him in touch with another guy. This guy's actually got whole chapters on the book about killing Osama bin Laden because he's like, yeah, I got all this information from my Iraqis I just grabbed off the street. Eventually, the government there was like, I feel like you're not really a contractor and you just kind of made this all up and we're going to put you in prison. And our government's like, yep, never heard of him. And he's like, that's what the government always says. They always pretend they want to disown you when you do the really good shit, So he's like, yeah, you guys get me now. And then sets that up. So he does his time in prison. After about 3 years, they're like, I really don't want to pay for you to be in prison anymore. How about you just get the fuck out of our country? And he's like, well, I could go back to the United States, but I feel like there might be handcuffs there waiting for me. So maybe I don't do that. And goes down to Mexico and gets about 10 wives and just lives it up. And then later died of AIDS, according to his girlfriend, who's angry because he gave her AIDS, is what she's saying. And she's like, but he had 10 wives, but I only think one of them was legal. So, there's that. So I'm just saying, there's lots of opportunities to you. If you can't maybe go the mainstream route, there are other options. And again, there's always the French Foreign Legion. So just saying, the whole mercenary thing's on the table. If that's something you guys are into, you might want to look into that. But if you want to just secretly be a badass and not really commit to going out and committing heinous crimes and, or working as a slave for somebody, whatever you don't want to do, maybe you just want to go to preppingbadass.com and check out the cool t-shirts and you can just live vicariously, through us and support us with the cool t-shirts. I mean, that's another way to go. So that you have show topics, ideas, questions, concerns, comments. You want to yell at us for dogging contractors and tell us that you're all cool and everything's cool like that, then you can go to email us at preppingbadass@gmail.com. Otherwise, stay safe, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
The Survival and Basic Badass podcast is a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network.
Planning a fishing trip shouldn't feel like a full-time job. With FishingBooker.com, you can find and book the perfect fishing trip within minutes. FishingBooker.com connects you with trusted fishing captains around the world. Booking is fast, easy, and secure, with access to verified customer reviews, loyalty rewards, and around-the-clock customer support. Everything you need to book with confidence is in one place. So head to FishingBooker.com and start planning your next fishing adventure today.